Possession at 30,000 perforations a minute. Written and narrated by Tom G.H. Adams. Her birth certificate showed Deirdre was born on the 13th of November 1985, but some dark and twisted demon spawned her much earlier than that. A girl like Deirdre, producing quality arm sleeves like those tattooed on the skin of the unwary, would have no problem forging a false document. I'd seen her work. It was good in every respect. Dark mulberry skulls formed from tangled branches of willows. Vermilion dragons coiled themselves round thunder-cracked mountain tops. And Jimi Hendrix lifted his guitar out of psychedelic whirls, reminding us not to dally on our journey to the next world. She'd evaded capture and execution for at least 300 years. You don't last that long through good luck charms and a leprechaun's promise. Her trail led me to Moss Side, Manchester, and a tattoo parlour on Remthorne Street called Dark Flesh. I'd scrawled the name with a 2B pencil on the screwed-up bit of paper held in my hand. Looking down the cobbled alley, I saw it written again in Gothic print on the sandwich board erected in front of an open doorway. This had to be the place. The guild hired me. I make a habit of knowing more about my clients than they know of me. I'm a cautious bloke. But the guild are invisible as they are convincing. £500,000 sterling was a high contract price, and I didn't have to negotiate. "It's more than you'll ever earn in a lifetime," the man with the jaundiced skin had said. I didn't learn his name. Ultimate deniability if the jaded ones caught up with me. "Half up front, the other half once you drop the head off at this address." He wrote on a pad, ripped off the note and passed it over. He also gave me 12,500 blue ones, each sporting the implacable face of Michael Faraday. I didn't ask what they wanted her dead for. A high-caliber liquidator needs no other reason than the lucre in the man's rucksack. Besides, I'm not an amateur. That's me, cautious and professional. I stopped a few yards from the entrance and looked up at the facade. Someone had blacked out the windows. They were framed by splintered boardings, held up more by wishful thinking than a joiner's skill. Gaudy paintwork advertised the services offered on bright red hoardings. Piercing, massages, and, of course, tattoos. Everything from tribal to photorealistic. A lone sap with a tree trunk neck leaned against the door jamb, cigarette held in curled fingers, and the head billiard ball smooth. The only aberration was the tiny lock of hair at the back, tied in a genie twist. If he was staff, he might be trouble, but I bet on him being a punter. He didn't look the artisan type, and the Motorhead snaggletooth tattoo on his right bicep was fresh. "Excuse me," I said. He eyeballed me up and down, then stepped to one side with a grunt. A wooden staircase extended to the first floor. If she was in there, and my source was adamant, she'd hear me coming. No helping it, so I went up. I focused on the nature of the beast, my thoughts backtracking to the trail I'd followed. After a bunch of dead-end leads, I'd found one of her victims in a Salford mid-terraced ruin. The girl's mother had to speak for her. "Psychologist says she's catatonic," the woman had said. She wore a grey buzzcut that gave her a hard look, but the way she worried over her daughter shone a light on her devotion. "It's usually caused by trauma, they say. Only I know she ain't been hanging around with a gang lately." The woman's NG sounds didn't coalesce. Thoroughbred Mancunian. She combed her daughter's damp hair with skill, teasing out the knots as only a mother can. "Only place she's been was that bloody tattoo parlour. Ever since then she's not stopped shaking. It don't matter how much I turn the heating up, or the number of blankets I wrap round her. It don't stop the shivering. None of us are getting any sleep. As soon as she drops off, she wakes up again, with a scream to pierce the soul." I sat down next to the girl. She fixed her eyes on a distant end point beyond the wall of reason. "Can you make out any of her words when she cries out?" I asked. "Yeah, she tells us to save her from the shadow. That and whimpering about how cold she is. I tell you, I'm at my wit's end. Husband and I don't know how much more we can take. He's thinking of having her committed to an institution, he is. I know they'll say we're washing our hands of the problem, but I say it's no use everyone ending up at the funny farm now, is it? I examined the girl's upper arm. Is this the tattoo she had done? That's the one. What goes through a girl's head to want such a thing? I tell you, I'm sure it's got something to do with her condition. I reckon she had a reaction to the ink. Or maybe they didn't use clean needles. Either way, so much should be done about it. They need closing down. I shut out the woman's prattle and took in the design again. The symbology was dark, true enough. A heap of grey-coloured skulls formed a pyramid rising from her elbow. At the top sat an overlord. It was signature work. It was her. Tattoo ink enters deep into the skin's dermis. Held there in a permanent wrestling match with the body's immune system, it gets locked in the cells, declaring its presence with 100,000 neighbours forming the artwork. Only the ink she used was even more insidious. It diffused into the bloodstream, spreading as a poisonous tincture until it penetrated her mind and nerve endings. Once there, it acted as a conduit for her soul-absorbing power. There are names both ancient and arcane given to these entities. I call them parasites. If I could find the bitch and rid the world of her contagion, then the girl might stand a chance of survival. She appeared pretty far gone, though. I thanked the woman for talking to me and assured her my department would look into a complaint about the parlour. "What was your name again?" she asked. I told her, knowing it would evaporate from her memory the moment she tried to think of it again. Psychic sleight of hand. It's one of my gifts. I fast-forwarded to the present. The door at the head of the stairs was ajar. Through a false pocket in my greatcoat, I locked a hand around the hilt of my weapon and knocked with the other. "Come in," said a husky voice. She stood at a counter sideways on, her profile distinct in the glow of the lamp. Thinking about it, she wasn't so much beautiful as enticing. Straightened ash-grey hair formed wisps around the lozenge of her face. Silver snakebite jewellery pierced sable lips. A chain ran along the forehead with 3 descending lines, each ending in a wolf's tooth. It whispered exotic. She changed a bit since Mr. Hepatitis B's photographer had shot her. Still, I had her pinned. She applied oil to a tattoo gun with practised care, the length of her painted nails contradicting the nature of the task. "Deirdre?" I asked. She turned her head, pupils alternately dilating and constricting, crocodile-like. She knew. "You've wrapped up warm for a summer evening," she said, still holding the pneumatic tattoo machine. The mistake is to talk to them too much. They have a way with words, and damn if she wasn't such a stunner. With that perfect skin and beguiling smile, the job would have been a whole lot easier. I pulled out my blade. Technically speaking, it's called an analace. Seems to me if you're going to kill, you might as well do it with style. I blocked the siren image and tried to see her for what she was. A soul sucker. She stood up, backing away from me like a cornered beast. It wasn't enough. I lunged forward and saw the 18-inch blade sink into her chest between the breasts. She looked down at it, gasped, then fixed me with those reptilian eyes. I heard the buzzing too late. She rammed the tattoo gun into my cheek with a numbing blow. Fireflies of pain shot across my vision as I recoiled. She was a limpet, holding me close in a 2-step of death. The needles burrowed their way into my face, and I screamed as I fell backwards. She landed on top, her face warped into a devil's smile. Then I saw the light in her eyes extinguish, like 2 stars imploding under their own weight. My job was done. The tool fell out of her limp hand, and my blood scattered across the polished floorboards in an arc. I rolled her off me and tugged the blade from her cursed form. The side of my face gushed blood, the wound hamburger meat to the touch. I scanned the studio until I found a towel, pressed it to my cheek to stem the flow. It'd have to do until I got stitched up. There was one more act to perform. With one downstroke, I cleaved the head from her torso. Was it my imagination, or was the blood black? As it soaked into the legs of my chinos and painted my shoes, I thought to myself, I won't even try to wash it out. £500,000 would pay for a wardrobe full of the finest Savile Row could offer. My clothes were destined for the bonfire. I lifted the head by its hair and looked into the centuries-old face one last time. She smiled no longer. I bundled it into a heavy-duty plastic sack, double-bagging it to ensure against leaks. Didn't I tell you I was cautious? A cautious man wouldn't have forgotten about the muscle waiting outside. He was still there, and here was I spattered with the she-devil's ichor. No way to hide it. If I believed in benevolent deities, then I'd have thanked him, because he didn't tag me for a moment, just kept staring down the street, inhaling the cancer fumes into his tar-ridden lungs. 7 days later, with the head deposited and another $250,000 in my bank account, I should be a happy man. Except Satan's habit is to barf over your buffet. You see, it was too easy. I should have twigged. She'd ripped the balls off the best hunters in history, and I thought a one-thrust kill was down to my superior prowess. There was enough poison ink in her tattoo gun to elicit a transfer. She didn't die. She just discovered a new home. I suppose I should be grateful. She gives me some headspace now and again, only to remind me of what I used to be. The rest of the time she controls, no, consumes me. I see my hands create her incomparable artwork on the skin of her victims before she sucks them dry. Poor buggers. Top myself, I hear you ask. Do the Dutch. It's a luxury I'm denied. She possesses an iron will and the use of my skills. No, the only way to tolerate this living hell is to numb myself. View what we do as an art of sorts. Art expressed through the twisted kaleidoscope of her mind. We don't have a viewing public to our objet demoniaque, so we appreciate it for its intrinsic quality. Art for art's sake. Kat Von D, Gautier, and 10cc would be so proud.